Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Leeds series. The city of Leeds is one of the 5 metropolitan boroughs of West Yorkshire. 38 civil parishes lie within its boundaries. Which slice of the city are we seeing today? Welcome back to Leeds, everybody. Now, question for you. What do you think the most famous village in this country is? Have a good think about it. Well, you're probably going to be hard pushed to look any further than Emmerdale, which is the village which is seen in the soap of the same name, which used to be called Emmerdale Farm years and years ago. Now here, you can access the set of Emmerdale and you can take a tour of the set. And this is the pub where the tour starts from. This is the New Inn in Eckup. And Eckup is part of the parish of Allwoodley. This Leeds video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find her link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Allwoodley is a suburb of Leeds located 5 miles north of the city centre. Still a civil parish, it's one of Leeds' biggest and is one of the most affluent areas of the city. The name Allwoodley is thought to derive from the Old English Æthelwald-lēah, meaning the woodland clearing at Æthelwald's farm. The route of the Roman road between Ilkley and Tadcaster passes through Allwoodley. Part of it was excavated along Lakeland Crescent in 1994. The area to the north is mainly countryside, which includes the village of Eccup, famed for the massive Eckup Reservoir and being the village where the Emmerdale tour begins. Running along Allwoodley's western boundary is a huge wood. Named Adel Woods, there's more than a few landmarks within its trees, including Adel Pond and the Slabbering baby. Allwoodley is something of a sporty area of Leeds too. It has within its boundaries no less than 3 golf courses, 2 rugby clubs, a football club, a cricket club and a tennis club. As such, there's a lot to see on this walk, and what a walk this was. This took me almost 4 hours, although it would have been quicker had it have not been punctuated by a spell of very heavy rain. Let's get moving and see the sights that Allwoodley has to offer. Welcome to Allwoodley, the penultimate parish of Leeds and one of the longest walks I've ever done. We begin on the lovely Allwoodley Village Green, located towards the parish's western boundary. It's a gorgeous village green and it has a huge playground, which was opened by the Lord Mayor of Leeds, Ronnie Feldman, in 1991. The stone which commemorates this came from Black Hill Quarry, sited between Allwoodley and Bramhope. The playground was refurbished in 2011 according to this small plaque. This also talks about the Jubilee Garden you can find here too, which consists of a flower bed and an oak tree planted in 2012 commemorating Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. Not far away there's another board which shows you the layout of the green and talks about Meanwood Beck, locally known as Nanny Beck. It flows to the south of the green and in it you can find white-clawed crayfish. Right, our next stop is the cricket club, which is somewhere up here. You don't have to go very far along this path and you feel like you're in the countryside, but you're not. This is a suburb of Leeds, and as such we're not far away from like an urban centre, which is a bit mad when you consider my current surroundings, but it's literally just only over there. This is Crag Lane, an area of the parish synonymous with sports. Away to the left is a track running to Allwoodley Cricket Club, which dates back to 1935. Crag Lane is also where you'll find one of Allwoodley's 2 rugby union clubs. That would be Leodiensian, who are locally known as Leos. They are, according to their Twitter account, a stridently amateur club who, despite that, still play serious. They're based right on the edge of Adel Woods. Adel Woods spans some 175 acres between Adel and Allwoodley and make up part of the Meanwood Valley Local Nature Reserve. This green space is relatively unknown to most people, even Leeds natives. It's worth getting to grips with the geography of the woods before you arrive, as it's not particularly well signposted, but that's a change that the local group, the Friends of Adel Woods, are in the process of making. Okay, so Adel Woods also is close by to another local landmark, which is called Adel, and that's Adel Crag. And we're heading for that right now, up here. Adel Crag is also known as Allwoodley Crag, and it's a rocky outcrop. This is the exact spot where Google Maps will tell you it is, but this clearly isn't it. The picture you see on your screen right now is what I was looking for. I was a little disappointed not to find it, so I moved on. Now, riding a bike in Adel Woods is a popular option if you're someone that enjoys a mountain bike trail. To the north of the car park on Stairfoot Lane, you'll find this wonderful little track. There are in fact a few of these in the woods. The tracks are not formally signposted, yet still attract a lot of visitors. Even whilst I was here, there were at least 2 people using this track, and I was careful to avoid them. Next, I walked down to the beautiful Bridge Cottage next to Adel Beck. Here's a fun bit of history for you. Not far from here, on the other side of Stairfoot Lane, is an old quarry which houses a storage bunker where documents from World War II were hidden. Yeah, so very easy to get lost in woods like these, and I'm going to be in these woods for a while yet, because when we get to the end of this path that I'm currently on, which runs alongside the beck, which is down here to my right as you look at it, we'll be heading towards a very interesting feature, which actually isn't in Allwoodley, it's just over the parish boundary, but I am going to include it because I think people that have been waiting for this episode will expect to see it. Straight after the war, Adel Woods was sold to Leeds City Council for just over £23,000. There was a stipulation attached to that sale which stated the land was only to be used for agriculture, horticulture, or as a public open space. There's some water features in the woods. Take this one for example. This is Adel Pond, once associated with a flax mill which stood close by. It stood in Adel Woods for more than 100 years before it was demolished after its roof fell in. Also within the woods is the Slabbering baby. This is a natural freshwater spring that spurts water from the face of a baby. In its Victorian heyday, the freshwater spring was regularly used by folks visiting a local tea room. Even though it's a freshwater spring, I wouldn't recommend drinking from it. I found one online article in which the writer says they knew some people who did, and they instantly filled their pants and/or vomited. Not nice. Now, none of those landmarks are outside Allwoodley's boundaries. This is the landmark I was aiming for. And you might think this is an old railway viaduct. You'd be wrong. This is an aqueduct called Seven Arches. The Romanesque Seven Arches Aqueduct is a beautiful structure located in Scotland Wood, which is best described as a wood within a wood. Both Adel and Scotland Woods are sometimes referred to by each other's names. Seven Arches was built between 1837 and 1842 to transport water from Eckup Reservoir to the city of Leeds. Before the aqueduct was built, Leeds locals relied on boreholes and the River Aire for their water. The use of this impressive structure was short-lived after the city's demand exceeded the aqueduct's capacity only 24 years after it was opened. Despite being disused, it's still Grade 2 listed and it's become a local attraction. Each arch spans an impressive 34 feet. I believe you used to be able to walk on top of it, but it's since been fenced off. Even if it was an option now, I wouldn't have gone for it. I was more than happy to just admire the gorgeous curves from beneath. I wouldn't be surprised if the Strava map at the end of this episode breaks the record for how long and how far I've walked so far. I've been well over an hour in these woods, but the trouble is that the footpaths aren't really defined very well, and so you're constantly checking Google Maps for the little blue blob which tells you which direction you're pointing. I've done fairly well, to be fair. Right, the rest of this episode will be a little bit more conventional because this path takes us back into civilization. Ah, paved roads. They were a welcome sight after that. We've got 2 schools to see next. On the end of Deanswood Drive is Alwoodley Primary School, which is just over the parish boundary, but I've included it anyway. This one is very much inside the boundary. This is St Paul's Roman Catholic School, and behind that is the Associated Roman Catholic Church. These are both close to Nursery Lane, which is more or less the southern parish boundary. On Nursery Lane, there's a dentist, and there's also an entrance to another major school in the area, although technically it too is not in Leeds Parish. That would be Allerton High School, which began life as a girls' grammar school in 1901. It was located on Harrogate Road before it moved to Moor Allerton in 1939. In 1972, it became a comprehensive for both sexes. It then moved into new buildings in 2008 and was formally opened by the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Now, a lot of Allwoodley is residential, and the type of house you can find here varies greatly. I'm on a street here which is, you would say, you know, middle of the road kind of housing. Certainly not great big mansions, and certainly not council houses and you know, low value properties. To the north east of Allwoodley, there's some mansions, you know, ones that are worth definitely 6-figure, maybe 7-figure sums. And I do think that I think there are some council properties in Allwoodley somewhere too. So there's a good mix. I mean, it's so big, it doesn't really surprise me. It's like a small town. So for the most part, the rest of this video will be residential. So I'll just take the odd shot of what I find interesting, really. Otherwise, it's just houses. Generally, in suburban Leeds, areas of housing are all named. This area is known as the Turnberries because of all the streets around here being Turnberry something. Other major areas in this part of Allwoodley include the Birkdales and the Sunningdales. After walking through the estate for a while, we find the Henry Cohen campus. This has not just one but 2 Jewish faith schools. These are Brodetsky Primary School and the Leeds Jewish Free School, which is a high school. Briefly back to Nursery Lane next, and here's a bus stop. Allwoodley's main services are the number 7 and the 7A, which both run into Leeds. Here on Nursery Lane, you'll need the number 7. It's the 7A if you're nearer to the avenue. Where Nursery Lane becomes Primley Park Crescent is a water tower, part of the covered Moortown Reservoir, which holds 8 million litres of high-quality treated water. That's equivalent to more than 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. As far as water features go, that water tower pales in comparison to the biggest one I'll show you towards the end of this video. Let's keep walking through the houses first though. This area is known as Primley Park. Much like I explained earlier, all the streets around here are Primley Park something. Primley Park's properties are generally low-rise, semi-detached or detached. This forms one of Allwoodley's 4 main regions of housing. These 4 regions lie around the edges of one of the largest landmarks in the parish, and even though this sign tells us the street to the right is a dead end, you can access that landmark on foot from Primley Park. There's a public right-of-way which crosses Moortown Golf Club, one of Allwoodley's 3 golf courses. The other 2 are Headingley and Sandmoor. Moortown is arguably the most famous of the 3 because in 1929 it hosted the Ryder Cup. Great Britain would win that edition by a score of 7-5. Moortown was founded in 1909 and the course was designed by Dr. Alistair Mackenzie. The course was a regular stop on the European tour in the 1980s. So unlike South Cave, which I did a few weeks ago, walked across golf course there were no errant golf balls here, although there are warning signs. Make sure you look to the right and to the left as you cross the course. You never know, there may well be golf balls coming your way. Here we're close to the parish boundary again, this time to Allwoodley Gates, an area to the east which falls inside Harewood. This is Allwoodley Lane, the part of the parish which has the big mansion-like houses I was talking about earlier. Some of these properties have obscene prices. It's little wonder that a few years ago, the Times reported that LS17, the postcode in which Allwoodley lies, contained the most expensive housing area in Yorkshire and the Humber. Walking down the fairway brings us to a row of shops on the avenue. Because the parish as a whole is very residential and so unlike a village, it's quite hard to pin down a village centre, but the avenue seems to be its central street. There are other shops dotted around, like for example a co-op on Nursery Lane, but the avenue has most of the things we're accustomed to seeing in a normal village centre, including this old red phone box, which is now a book exchange. That's so good to see. Even in a parish which is technically speaking a suburb, there's still a book exchange in much the same way as we'd find in a normal village. Let's keep walking. A little further down the avenue, the road bends to the right slightly, and on that bend is a parish notice board. Mark off Allwoodley, everybody. We're down to 1 in Leeds. This board stands outside Allwoodley Community Hall. Allwoodley Community Association, or ACA for short, run the hall. They were established in 1948. This plaque on the hall's wall says it was built in 1949 by the people of Allwoodley with little to no outside help. The ACA's facilities include the main hall, a series of smaller meeting rooms, a lounge bar and a family room with a big screen TV. Outside there are 3 tennis courts and a football pitch. Let's go check those out. The tennis courts are used by Allwoodley Tennis Club, who are registered with the Lawn Tennis Association, who awarded them the honour of Club of the Year in 2014 for services to the game in Yorkshire. Okay, this looks like a football pitch. There's no goals, but it's certainly got a football pitch vibe about it. Got a couple of dugouts there, and got rugby posts on the other side, so yeah, definitely a sporty type area with the tennis club behind us, this pitch here, a rugby pitch beyond, and whatever that is there, I can't really see what it is. It turns out what I could see were the buildings associated with Allwoodley's second rugby union club, Moortown. Founded in 1934, Moortown has always been a force in local rugby. They describe themselves as an amateur club with a big social vibe. The football pitch is used by Allwoodley Football Club. A fairly new club, Allwoodley were established in 1999 and compete in the Yorkshire Amateur League. Both of these sports clubs can be found at Moss Valley. Back to the avenue, we've now got a Methodist church. This originally opened in an adapted bungalow in 1941. 15 years later, the church we see today was opened, and large and small church halls followed during the 1960s. A left turn up the valley and now we're on the View, where there's some more high quality detached and semi-detached housing. I couldn't really appreciate this though, because this is where the rain started to fall. It's been thinking about it all morning and the rain has just started to fall. I'm not far away from the end of the route actually, but this tree is providing me with a little bit of shelter before we complete the main walk, thankfully. So it's some 20 minutes later and it's still raining really heavily. I've come across the road because I noticed a dry patch under this hedge, which is now a little bit wetter. But yeah, I'm just stuck here for the foreseeable. Can't really go anywhere. I was stood in that same position for almost an hour. I took advantage of my predicament though. Check this out. Look how difficult it is for rainwater to flow away when leaves block drains. This is why keeping drains clear is essential. Once it had slowed down a little, I walked on and found myself at the Church of St Barnabas. This was built in the early 1960s. The church has a single bell, and the adjoining church hall has a small ship's bell, and both are painted an alarming shade of pink. The last act on the main walk is to check out King Lane, where we find the other main shopping area. You might recognise this from a parish notice board episode which came out a few weeks ago. Well done if you guessed it. There's a good selection of businesses, including a bakery, a pharmacy and a dry cleaners here, and there's also a Tesco Express just beyond this point here. The black fronted building is the Olive Branch, a top rated Mediterranean restaurant. I don't know if Allwoodley is a place that floods, but I have seen plenty of large puddles everywhere around since this rain's come down. And people need to learn to slow down too, because that is the result of the water. People have splashed me no end. The bottom of my trousers are soaking, thanks to people driving past and not slowing down. I can't say as I'm impressed. Right, back to the car. Leaving Allwoodley behind, we've now travelled to the north along Eckup Lane to catch the tiny village of the same name. Eckup may be small, but can call itself a famous village, thanks to its association with Emmerdale. We'll get to Emmerdale shortly, but let's cover some basics first. The place name Eckup is first attested in the Domesday Book as Eckhope. It's thought to derive from the Old English personal name Ecka and means Ecker's patch of good land. From the 16th century, the area between Eckup and the River Wharfe was known as Adel-Eckup. The village once had a Wesleyan chapel, according to Kelly's Directory of the West Riding of Yorkshire in 1881. Now, one interesting place in Eckup would be Burden Head Farm, just to the north of the village. It's recorded in the Domesday Book as Burg de Run, thought to come from the Old English words burg and dun. Burg, as we know from previous episodes, means fortified place, whilst dun means hill. It's not an unreasonable assumption, therefore, to believe that the village once had some kind of hill fort, and that's a possibility given the Roman activity in the area. At the end of Eckup Moor Road is Herd Farm Activity Centre, and this, the Eckup Water Treatment Works. What we've come up here to see primarily, though, is the massive Eckup Reservoir, or at least that was the plan. Not far from here is the dam wall, which is where I was planning on standing to talk a little bit about the reservoir and its history. Seeing this sign, though, made my heart sink. With it being closed, I was ready to give up on the idea, but then I had a brainwave. It may have been closed, but I am not one to be easily defeated. Now, there's a path here which will take us towards the reservoir, and as long as I can see it, it doesn't necessarily matter if I'm on the dam or not. Ideally, I would like to be on the dam, but if that's closed, well, can't really do much about that. But from this path, I'm hoping to see the reservoir, and if I can, then we'll talk about it when we get there. I was in luck. The footpath took me to the point where the road was closed, just about close enough to see the reservoir. Normally, a 5-mile circular walk around the reservoir is possible, but not on this occasion. Eckup Reservoir was constructed in 1843 and expanded to its present size in 1897. It's owned by Yorkshire Water. The open water area covers 91 hectares, making it the largest area of water in West Yorkshire. It receives water from several smaller reservoirs and from the River Ouse. It was built primarily to supply water to the city of Leeds, but over time it became a local attraction instead. The reservoir and the surrounding woodlands are both sites of special scientific interest. This, of course, is the northern side of the reservoir. On the southern side, there used to be a mansion called Alwoodley Old Hall. It was demolished in 1969 and its grounds were used for Sandmoor Golf Club. So I can't actually see why it's closed, to be honest with you. The road looks in decent shape. There doesn't seem to be any major problems. There's no roadworks here. But I have honoured this sign and I've gone no further than here. So yeah, the last 4 shots you've just seen, I've just been basically stood here or just back from here. You can see the reservoir. I'm quite happy with that. I thought I was going to have to use pictures from the internet, but like I said, I'm not one to be defeated easily. To finish with, we're back on Eckup Lane, and this is the New Inn. This is the pub where visitors to the set of the ITV soap Emmerdale begin their journey. The New Inn and parts of Eckup Village have been used in the past as location settings for the soap. Brookland Farm, a working farm to the south of the pub, is used for external shots of Butler's Farm. However, most of the soap is filmed in the specially built village we talked about in the Harewood episode. The tour only operates on selected weekends because during the week the set is occupied by Emmerdale's cast and production crew. Here at the pub is where you board a coach, transporting you onto the Harewood estate. Tours last 90 minutes and they're fully guided and include all the landmarks we see on TV, like the cafe, the shop, and of course the wool pack. It's one village I'll likely never be able to do on the channel, but wouldn't it be great if I could? And after all that, you're going to need today's picture bit now, aren't you? And there you have it. That's been the parish of Allwoodley. And I've only got one left in Leeds now. That seems a bit crazy to say. 37 down and just one to go. And that, of course, is Wetherby, which will come your way next week. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot. This has been the parish of Allwoodley, and I'm out.